I'm Andy Dinsdale, and I was at the beginning of the Juggling Club when it started off in Hastings, something like 23, 24 years ago. And you might think this is juggling, but this is just one of many, many juggling patterns. And when I came to the Juggling Club, I realised, oh, wow, and you could do that, and you could do that, and you could do that, and you could do all sorts of things. You go, whoa. The people that come here are probably getting a sense of involvement in doing something that they possibly thought they were the only people who were doing it. I didn't personally set up the Juggling Club, but I was at the very first Juggling Club, the very first meeting of the Juggling Club in Hastings, which was in 1989. Before then, there'd been no juggling club in Hastings, nothing at all like this, and it just happened there were quite a few people who had learned to juggle within that year and wanted to meet other people who could juggle. As you can see, we're in a church today. We're usually in a church hall, so it's quite interesting, you know, we can do different tricks, you know, like juggling over the altar and from up there, and yeah, it's a lovely backdrop. But yes, it costs quite a bit to run, but we make just enough to keep going. We changed from going once a week to once a month because not everyone could come at the same, you know, could commit to come every week. And you know, it's sort of 52 weeks of a year, it's quite expensive, and it's quite a lot of, unless you're really committed, and there's some of us who are really committed, but it wasn't, at that point, sort of around about 2000 or so, less people were interested in juggling.
I think I was 8 when I started, so I'm nearly 25 now, so it was from 1997. I came along because my sister came along at the time. She had a friend that was doing it, but since then my sister only came for a few weeks, but I enjoyed it, so I kept coming.
I've been in the club since 95, so you know, I just sort of like take on multiple roles of you know, helping new people. You know, somebody new walks in the door and I jump on them, not literally. I sort of like, you know, find out what they're capable of, what they want to learn, and either, you know, teach them myself or pass them on to somebody else.
I first came to this club in 1994. It was about a year after I started juggling in 1993. I was only juggling balls at that sort of time, and I remember seeing Andy. He taught me how to do Diablos and Devil Sticks, and I'd never seen those before, and was really impressed and blown away. I've learned a lot of skills, a lot of juggling. Obviously, when I first started coming to the clubs, I was only doing sort of 3 or 4 balls. I can now do 5, 6, starting to learn 7.
Well, we came to this club. Well, my grandma knows Andy, and basically we really like doing circus things and things like that. And in Hastings and stuff around here, there's not really much to do about that. So when we found out about this place, we were quite excited because it's fun to practice
And meet other people that do it, so you kind of get to learn and stuff.
Yeah, you can learn stuff from other people.
I've been juggling for about 15 years in total. My sister started juggling as part of a theatre group, and sibling-wise always being what it is, I decided I could juggle better than that, so I did take it a bit more seriously.
I run the Thomas Wells Juggling Club. We've been going for 21 years. We started many years ago. Used to be really busy, but now we're very quiet like this is.
By running the Juggling Club, the people that come here are probably getting a sense of involvement in doing something that they possibly thought they were the only people who were doing it.
The club has helped me in my day-to-day life it gives me social skills where I come along and chat to other people here about the same thing that we all enjoy, and I find it gives me confidence because then I can practice doing juggling. I think got some skills to use, and it impresses other people because they don't believe that people can juggle, or they go, wow, you can juggle.
I think juggling has contributed a good way to my life. It keeps me fit. I juggle pretty much most days at the moment. I'm quite enthusiastic about it. I practice up to about an hour a day at the moment. When I first started, I was doing about 6 hours a day and really, really keen.
You know, you can interact, you can juggle with people, you can throw things at each other. It's quite safe. And it's fun. Of all the people in the club, the relationship we have within the club is quite close because there's a lot of people that all started juggling maybe 15 to 20 years ago, and so we knew each other then. In fact, there's one or two behind me who I think I first met 23 years ago.
Yeah, I made some good friends, yeah. So, I mean, over the years, you know, since I started, you know, people have come and gone. There's a few here that are still here. I mean, I met my partner in the club. You know, so it's had its benefits.
Yes, so some of the people here tonight, I do hang around with outside of the club. Because the club is only monthly. I do see some of these people like every other weekend, or more than when I'm at the club.
Definitely made a lot of friends through juggling, both this club and Tunbridge Wells, plus the festivals we go to.
Yeah, I mean, made loads of friends over the years, and you get to meet all sorts of different people as well, which is really good fun.
Study made I think it was in the 80s or 90s, where the longest living professions included being a conductor, and the nearest profession to a juggler, activity-wise, is a conductor. But why a conductor was a very healthy occupation was because they were doing this. It was very good for their upper body circulatory system. So they were keeping everything moving, keeping blood flowing, and what have you. So I think it's very healthy for you, and also it's very healthy on a spiritual level almost, because if you learn to juggle 3 objects, and in the pattern called the cascade, which is the neutral of all the juggling patterns. It's like if you're in a car in neutral, everything goes back to neutral. In juggling, you go to cascade, and then before you start doing another trick. If you're doing the cascade, you can focus straight through that pattern, and it's almost it helps your mind. It's been likened to yoga. You might not believe it, but it has.
Apparently in Germany they've done lots of research into brain, and they've proved that juggling actually increases the size of your brain. It doesn't actually make you more intelligent, it just increases the size of your brain. Because when you're learning anything new, you learn with the right hand side of your brain, and then when you've learned, it goes into the left hand side of the brain and locks in. It's the same with juggling. So they say once you learn to juggle 3 balls, you do 10 throws, it goes from the right hand side to the left hand side, and you juggle forever. I think because it expands the size of your brain, it actually makes you be able to remember more in different ways. Loads of jugglers are into computers and numbers, because juggling's all about numbers. So if you actually say 3 numbers, it's called sight swap. It's a book of numbers and you can juggle them. So if you come up with 3, 2, 4, that's a juggling pattern. Because a 1 is basically, a 0 is holding a ball still, a 1 is straight across, 2 is slightly higher, 3 is slightly higher, so each number goes higher. So 7 is the equivalent of juggling 7 balls, that's how high you'd have to throw 7.
The history of juggling. In Hastings it started on a large scale, when the Hastings Juggling Club formed, which was around about the winter of 1989, December 1989. Before then, there were 1 or 2 people in Hastings who could juggle, but they went off with circuses, so they weren't hobby jugglers. They were jugglers it was a profession. The first British juggling convention was in 1988, and I think only about 50 people came along to that, maybe even less. So through the early 90s, lots and lots of people learned to juggle. And probably midway through the 90s, 1,000 people were coming to these juggling conventions. So huge numbers of people were juggling, well, relatively anyway. But now it's sort of plateaued a little bit, and not so many people are getting into it. I mean, maybe because of the internet and other things. But the internet has helped people get into juggling, where if there were people who couldn't get to a juggling club, there are lots of juggling clubs around the UK now, maybe 100 or so. But if you couldn't get to a juggling club, you could go online, and there are huge numbers of videos about how to juggle. And so there's an online community and lots of different juggling forums.
So learning to juggle with 3 balls to do 10 throws normally takes about an hour. That's it. Most people think it's going to take days, weeks, or anything else, months. But if you want to do it and you actually sit down and for an hour and do it, most people can do it in an hour.
Juggling has actually done a heck of a lot for me. I mean, it might be quite a jokey thing. Before I could juggle, I was quite a shy person. I didn't really like going out and doing very much. I learnt to juggle, and someone said, "Oh, you can juggle. Can you teach me to juggle?" Okay, I taught someone to juggle, and then someone heard about that and said, "Oh, can you come along and teach this language school to juggle?" Bigger audience, so I went to teach them to juggle, and then someone said, "Oh, you teach people to juggle. Can you do a show for me?" And that was like getting up in front of people and putting on a performance. And so I did a little one, and then a bit later I did a bigger one, and gradually I think I grew in confidence and was able to get up and talk and do things in front of people.
I have taught juggling at school to special needs kids, so just the communicating, it was quite rewarding actually, because whereas here, people pick up things really quickly, with kids that have, sort of like learning difficulties, and it was a challenge. So yeah, I enjoy that part of it.
We do a few charity events sometimes, which is quite nice because we don't get paid for those ones, but it's quite nice to go along, we can have a practice, and it also allows us to see each other a bit more regularly if we do these events. There are some events where we may get paid for, but they're quite infrequent. But there are professional jugglers out there who get paid quite a bit for doing events.
When I go out now and I teach or I perform, it's the little tricks that are not the juggling tricks, it's the performing tricks that I really enjoy. So if there's an audience there and they're looking at me and I'm juggling and they think they know what a juggler is going to do, well, I generally do something a bit different. I drop things quite a lot. I hit myself on the head quite a silly things. But if you're looking at a young audience, it's the performer audience interaction, which is great. The game at the end of the juggling club session is called Gladiators. Historically, that has been going for a very long time. What it is that everyone takes either 3 juggling balls or 3 juggling clubs. You all start at the same time, and you have to put everyone else off and be the last one keeping on juggling. If you're the last one, you've won. But what goes on in the meantime is you're juggling, and you might swipe around at someone else's juggling pattern and try and keep on juggling. You might throw one of yours really high in the air, look around, grab someone else's juggling club and carry on juggling. Anything goes. In Hastings, it's quite safe. We don't hurt each other very much because we're not that good at it. Other juggling clubs, people do that all the time. It's a very competitive thing, and quite often blood gets drawn. But at Hastings, it's a way of getting people to involve all together, so no one's left out. So beginner jugglers can do it with experienced jugglers, but it's a very good way to learn to juggle. Has given me great confidence to go out and do other things.